Joined now by Tim May, Letterman Row 97.1 The Fan. And Tim,
yeah.
I'm in shock. I'm confused in a good way. I mean, where was that performance? We saw a little bit of it against Tennessee, a little bit of it against Indiana in the second half, but this team was unbelievable.
Hey, Adam, the word I used after Ohio State got by Nebraska 2 weeks after losing by 1 point at Oregon, that game I used the word bewildered. I wasn't sure what kind of football team this was. I think you agree with me, right? Mm-hmm. They get by Nebraska and then start getting a little bit better. The Michigan game left everybody in tears, who's big Buckeye fans, and really the pitchforks were getting sharpened and things like that. You and I both know this was always in this team.
100%.
The turnaround came, like Davis Igbenogson said, and we've talked about it, you've talked about it yourself, the team meeting, the players' team meeting they had the day after the loss to Michigan, they got some stuff straight. Main thing is Davis Igbenogson pointed out at the game, was execute. Who cares what the coaches call? Whatever it is, execute your job. Now the coaches had a little epiphany after that Michigan game also. You can't do some of the things they were trying to do. Bottom line is, this team is playing on a plane it hadn't been on. I mean, 2 straight bushwhacks of the third best team in the Southeastern Conference, Tennessee, with the best defensive line in the SEC, right? Followed by, they didn't get even against Oregon. They're way out ahead again, you know what I mean? It's kind of like winning a big poker match, and suddenly you win the big pile. This is the best team in the country right now. I think you agree.
I just not only the best team in the country, I think if this is the team that shows up for the next 2 games, it's the best in the country by double digits. I think they just beat the second best team in the country, and they were up 31-0 at one point. You talked about execution, and I think you might be onto something there, Tim, because Ryan Day said a lot this week. He stopped with, there was no talk about game plan or this, or, we got to foot. He just said, we just got to play our game and execute. We just, enough. Like, he said in his first press conference, it's not fun, it's not entertaining, it's not a great soundbite. We just got to execute.
Right.
Boy, did they execute.
Yeah.
The play calling, though. I mean, at this point, what is it you always say? Air it out? Or
when in doubt, air it out.
They threw the ball around. Will Howard looked phenomenal. Jeremiah Smith is unguardable. When you see that, I mean, is there anybody that can stop that Buckeye passing attack?
Number one, create doubt and air it out. That's what they did against Oregon. The first play out of the bat, I just went, okay, this is different, because I've been waiting for, I told Chip Kelly after the game, I've been waiting for years for them to line up in that wide screen and then have somebody take off out of it, instead of throwing the wide screen. Mm-hmm. That's what they did to G. Scott for 35 yards on the first play, and you go, all right, this game's going to be different. I mean, you could sense it. And in that little play they ran where Jeremiah Smith came across the formation, and like Will Howard talked about afterward, the Oregon defense rotated slowly. Boom, it was there. He flips it to him. He goes, 45 yards for a touchdown. It was the third play of the game, and it's 1 minute into the game. Ohio State's up 7-0. You're just going, just like the Tennessee game, throw the ball, and then run it. And, of course, Travion Henderson's 66-yard run, the longest run by a Buckeye in the Rose Bowl for a touchdown. And then obviously Jeremiah Smith with 2 touchdown catches, 187 yards, the most ever by a freshman receiver in the Rose Bowl.
You got the press box fact guy in your ear
right
now?
But I'm just saying. But just think about, this is a historic game.
No, it is 100%.
He topped his predecessor, Chris Carter,
who was in the building,
who gave him a hug, as you posted the video before the game, giving him a hug. And I asked him about that afterwards, and he said, he goes, this guy's been there when I've needed him and things. But to do that in front of that guy, and this isn't all we're going to see of Jeremiah Smith. Now, I'm just talking about the offense. The defense was lights out. I mean, the first play by Cody Simon.
Well, that's what I want to get to next. And I thought this before the final drive of the first half, because everybody was going to talk about, the 34 points and how great they looked and unstoppable. There's no world. I don't understand. There's no world where Ohio State gives up 0 points to Oregon for 25 minutes in this game.
29 minutes.
And that's not a knock on this defense.
59 seconds.
Yeah, 59 seconds. They're a phenomenal defense.
Yes.
But Oregon's offense is just explosive. It's what they've done all year. And Caleb Downs, I talked to him after the game, and he was kind of bewildered. Even admitted, he said, a couple times you look at the scoreboard and you're like, oh my gosh, you got to stay in the moment. But when
keep making plays.
When you see that, I mean, what allowed them in this game? What was different, Tim, than in the last game in Eugene and just in the past so far?
Just like in boxing matches, when you know two guys are pretty equal, and one gets the measure of the other in the first, like Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, the first one gets the measure of the other, but just barely, and you know what this guy's all about now. Well, they knew what Oregon was all about based on the first of this. Well, I guess this is a sequel. The first time around, and they only got beat 32-31. They knew where they screwed up there at Oregon, despite the noise and everything else. They understood. They knew how fast these guys were now compared to going into that game, a little bit of an unknown. And a few mistakes were made, and it cost them the game. Most of the mistakes were made by Ohio State, obviously. There's something to be said about a rematch, man, when the other team has beaten you, but they know in their heads what went on October the 12th in Autzen Stadium. I'm talking about Oregon. Yeah. And they knew if Ohio State got a few things straight, it could be a Donnybrook. My favorite play in this whole game was the 48-yard touchdown pass to the right side over here, Jeremiah Smith.
He was wide open.
But it wasn't that. I mean, like Jeremiah Smith had said, that was his favorite play. But my favorite part of that play was Donovan Jackson almost in a boxing match with Jordan Birch, the feared, giant Jordan Birch, who was supposed to wreak havoc on
which we didn't hear his name called.
Right, just one time. But it was supposed to wreak havoc on Ohio State because he didn't get to play in that first meeting, and he would have been a big difference. He was no difference. Josh Fryer and Donovan Jackson, Ohio State's two tackles, had a great night, afternoon and night against him.
I'll say this, the offensive line, they always say they get the criticism when things go wrong, they get nothing when things go right.
Oh, I give it up to Donovan Jackson, baby.
What they have done is remarkable, considering the movement. Donovan Jackson is playing a completely different position, and he's playing it like an NFL starter right now.
And how about Will Howard just playing like a man,
the
grown man?
The throw to Emeka Egbuka was perfect. Yeah. Go back, it was absolutely remarkable how well they played.
I told him he was dropping dimes again, man, all over the Rose Bowl Stadium. And Emeka Egbuka with what I call those late hands, where he just flashes his
just
hands.
Put him out and grab it.
The defender doesn't even know it's coming until it's gone.
Well, so how do you capture this and keep it going? The one thing that's weird, Tim, is you and I are standing here, and typically when it's the Rose Bowl, they've handed out the confetti flies, and that's it.
That's it.
You move on and you get ready for the next season.
You won the Rose Bowl.
This is halfway.
Ohio State won a quarterfinal.
They won a quarterfinal, and how do you mentally just keep going here?
I'm telling you, could be proven totally wrong. Ohio State Ryan Day talked about it. I asked him about that just before he left the stadium. And bottom line is, these guys are all, wouldn't call it on a mission. They know how good they can be if they play like this. And they know they let themselves down in the regular season by not even getting to the Big Ten championship game. They understand it. Now the whole world understands what's up. Texas, their opponent in the next match at the Cotton Bowl in the heart of Texas. But Texas is in search of itself, like Ohio State found itself. And boy, like I said, I go back to that conversation with Davis and Nick Benosin. He admits that loss to Michigan might have been exactly what this group needed.
Well, I think
hard. I know it's hard for a lot of people to take, but it is what it is at this point.
I'll say this: we are not always right.
No,
that's shocking to a lot of people. But it felt like when we walked away from Eugene, we said if Ohio State had just played their game, they could have won this by 2 touchdowns. Ohio State did play their game and more here, and you saw what happened. I think when you look at the Michigan game, it happened. It's gone though. It's a distant memory. This is my first awakening that really the regular season it doesn't matter at this point, because what we just saw. And also credit to the 12-team playoff. Ohio State wouldn't have had a chance in the 14.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be where they are today without the expansion of the playoffs. Crazy, isn't it?
Well, he is Tim May. We talked all about the Oregon game. We're going to talk all about the Texas game now for the next 10 days. Keep it on 10 TV, 10 TV plus 97.1 The Fan for all your Buckeye coverage.